Okay, so today we're going to discuss whether or not you should use buckshot or slugs for home defense, right? Now, first, let's talk about slugs. Slugs, they offer unwavering potential, right? That's just power that God has bestowed upon you to deliver to whatever asshole invades your property, for sure. Now, the great thing about slugs is you can get long distance from them. You have one bullet, a slug, that you're focused on getting on target, which can be a pro, can be a con, depending on who you are and how good your aim is, right? Um, the price, eh, depending on what you're looking for and where you're looking, it can be a lot cheaper than buckshot, or it can be more expensive. Just depends on how high quality the brand is, or you know, different factors may factor in on price with that. And like I said, you only have one projectile, but this projectile is moving from God's hand to whatever person is hopefully supposed to receive it. Now, with that being said, if you live in the country, this is great, right? If you own your home, fantastic. Shoot this shit. If you have some distance between you and your neighbors, I mean. Because if you miss the asshole you're trying to shoot, right? Well, that slug is going from God's hand to whatever fucking drywall or wherever you put it that asshole is not standing. And you're gonna demolish whatever's in the way. You're gonna punch a hole and maybe another hole or two or three down the way until it just loses all of its power. And hopefully, like I said, you live in the country, so you're not worried about punching a hole into your neighbor because you missed at 3 a.m. when some dickhead broke in. So, yeah, on that end, it's great. Now, buckshot, right? Buckshot comes in many sizes. You can have like smaller BBs, or you can have higher, a higher count of smaller BBs or a lower count of bigger pellets, I guess I should say. And that's cool, right? And they come out in a pattern, right? So you have to typically have a choke if you wanted to have a tighter pattern to maintain going a further distance. And I mean, you can use buckshot and get a good distance as well. But you do have 8 or 9 big ass pellets or a bunch of small pellets, which results typically in flyers, meaning your pattern can be like this and you get 1 or 2 that just don't follow suit. And that is also a factor, because if those pellets fall and they fall out of line and they hit an individual or they break a window or something that we're not supposed to, well, that could potentially be bad. You could have to pay for some shit, or you might have to go to court because you accidentally hit somebody with something wasn't meant for them. And then pricing, again, pricing is comparable with them because you can switch and they're relatively, within $1 or $2 of each other, depending on what you're looking for. Now, the one thing I will say is that technically you can shoot both of these out of an open cylinder barrel shotgun, right? Or an open cylinder bore shotgun, I should say. That's the one thing, is compatibility. You can run them back to back if you want to. Again, whether or not you want a tighter pattern than cylinder, that's on you. Now, the good thing about buckshot is that it doesn't have the same power as a slug. So, it still will punch through walls and everything else. Whatever gets in its way is probably going to be demolished, but it's a little more maintainable, I guess, from the research I've seen. You don't want to get hit with either, though. That's like the main thing, is you don't want to be on the receiving end of a 12 gauge barrel in any capacity. Birdshot, buckshot, fuck slug. Because up close, if you hit somebody with either of these, they're kind of fucked if you shoot them in their center mass, right? The only difference I would say is if you hit somebody with a slug, it's going to leave a hole that you can see through. But if you hit somebody with buckshot, it's just going to put a bunch of big holes in them that you probably won't be able to see through. So I guess in regards, that brings me to another point. Cleanup. When you shoot somebody in your home, typically you use a handgun or a rifle, something that doesn't make as large of holes, right? But you're using a hole punching mechanism right here. And if you shoot somebody with a slug in their center mass, I mean, if they manage to not be fucking falling apart, there's going to be a good chunk of them everywhere behind wherever, they got hit. That's fucking gross. Now, buckshot probably make a little bit less of a mess because you're not picking chunks of people off the floor. but it's still gonna create a nice little pool of blood because you get hit with a fucking a fat ass pellet like that. I don't even consider that a pellet. That's a fucking ball, dog. Like you're getting hit with some big ass balls, and that's gonna fucking leave a mess too. Now effectiveness, they're both pretty effective, but a slug is 150% effective. Buckshot is 100% effective. It takes down bucks and shit. But, you know, to each their own. You still have to practice and train with them. So, you know, buy a few boxes of each, run them, and then weigh out your factors, right? Do you live in an urban environment where you have 10 fucking apartments jam-packed next to each other in one complex? Probably not going to be your go-to. Probably wouldn't use a shotgun in that capacity anyway, unless you're probably using birdshot or, you know, a smaller ball to shoot around, because realistically, you're going to punch through a wall and hit somebody on accident, and that's negligent. You should know better as a gun owner. But at the same time, I might need that long range. Because, hey, if you break in my house and I'm on the toilet, I might have to pick you off from the throne. In my apartment, I can see straight down the hallway from my toilet to the front door. So I'm not gonna say too much. I'm just saying, if you kick in my door while I'm on the crapper, I'm gonna hit you with a slug. I need that one shot. Not because I'm Billy Badass, but because, I mean, if it doesn't hit you, you're probably gonna shit your pants and run. Doesn't matter. As long as I'm safe, that's what I care about. I'll deal with the consequences, but again, negligence is key here. If you're negligent and you shoot somebody on accident, you could do life. But those are my main concerns when it comes to 12 gauge shotguns, whether using slug or buckshot.